Across the stars, one name was spoken with dread: the Zarketh Dominion. For over a century, they had swept through the galaxy like a sentient storm, reducing entire civilizations to ash and silence. No fleet had withstood them. No empire had resisted them for long. Their dominance was not built on brute force alone, but on a terrifying mastery of psionics, mental abilities that bent the laws of physics to their will. Zarketh warriors didn't fire weapons. They crushed minds, tore ships apart with thought, and turned planetary defense grids against their own populations. Their elite caste, the mind-forged, could sense intention before action, rendering resistance futile. Strategic outposts fell. Within hours, even fortified sectors became death traps. Theirs was a conquest of both flesh and thought, and every species that dared stand in defiance had been swiftly and mercilessly absorbed into their hive-like dominion. The Galactic Confederation, once a proud alliance of over 50 species, collapsed like paper under flame. The last of its leaders held a final emergency summit, broadcasting a desperate call for sanctuary to any corner of space untouched by the Zarketh's shadow. Their plea was not one of hope. It was a funeral dirge. Even the Kravel warlords, known for their savagery, had fallen silent. Resistance wasn't just suicidal. It had become irrelevant. But then came the whispers. Data fragments intercepted by fleeing refugee ships spoke of a world that had not yet submitted. A backwater planet, not even listed on the major star maps. A species classified as young, underdeveloped, and unaligned. Their name: humans. The Galactic archives held little information about them. Some minor observers had noted their odd behavior, their chaotic politics, emotional instability, and disturbing capacity for violence even among themselves. Nothing suggested they could resist the Zarketh, let alone defeat them. Still, the Dominion took note. Every species had bowed. This one would too. The Zarketh Emperor, Valterix the Infinite Mind, saw it as a formality. A simple show of force, a psychological blow, and Earth would fall. He dispatched a mind-forged strike envoy, instructed not to annihilate but to demonstrate. Let the humans witness the futility of resistance. But the envoy never reported back. At first, the Dominion believed it a transmission error, then came silence. Days passed. A second, larger reconnaissance squadron followed, and vanished. The Zarketh grew, intrigued. This had never happened before. Not once. Could it be that these humans had something more than primitive weapons? Or had they stumbled upon a power not yet understood? In the burned-out ruins of the Confederation, a few survivors noticed the shift in the Zarketh's tone. The unstoppable conquerors, so arrogant and sure, had paused. It was the first pause in over a century, and in that moment, a strange flicker of hope began to smolder. For the first time in generations, the galaxy dared to imagine a scenario the Zarketh had never prepared for. What if someone could stop them? The Zarketh Dominion had never known a true threat. For centuries, their psionic mastery over reality had rendered all other species powerless in their wake. Galaxies fell at their feet without a single shot fired. Civilizations capitulated in terror, and resistance was either crushed or obliterated. The Dominion's psionic warriors, the mind-forged, could bend gravity, stop time, and tear apart the minds of their enemies. They had seen it all. They had conquered it all. Then came Earth. At first, the Zarketh thought little of the unremarkable planet orbiting an insignificant star at the edge of the galaxy. The humans, they learned, were a young species, disjointed in their politics, divided by countless wars, and barely advanced technologically. They had never seen combat against a species as evolved as the Zarketh, and their ability to withstand the Dominion's overwhelming might seemed absurd. The Zarketh Empire, confident in their superior power, chose to send an envoy, a mind-forged praetor named Zareth, to deliver their message: unconditional surrender or annihilation. Zareth's mission was clear: show these primitive creatures the futility of defiance and strike terror into their hearts. He would project his psionic power across the human world, bending their wills, paralyzing them with fear. When Zareth arrived at Earth's atmosphere, he broadcast his message across all channels, using not just his voice, but his mind, a flood of thoughts, images, and emotions to overwhelm the human leaders. Bow before the Dominion, surrender or face extinction. His telepathic influence spread like wildfire, and for a moment, Earth trembled. Then, Earth did something the Zarketh had never expected. They didn't cower. Instead, they laughed. The response from humanity was a single cryptic message sent across the cosmos, intercepted by the Dominion's neural network. We don't kneel. For the first time, the Zarketh experienced confusion. The humans had heard Zareth's threat. They had felt the weight of his mind press into their thoughts, and yet they had rejected it. They had shown no fear. The response was defiant, simple, but it cut deeper than any weapon could. The Zarketh found themselves wondering, could this species be different? Zareth, enraged, prepared to demonstrate the Dominion's power in full. He called for reinforcements, but before they arrived, a second wave of human ships emerged from the shadows of their planet. These ships were primitive, by Zarketh standards unpolished and rudimentary, but they weren't there to fight, they were there to survive. The humans had made a key decision. They wouldn't fight the Zarketh in the traditional sense, they would outlast them. Unseen by the Zarketh, humanity had already started adapting to the situation. The humans had discovered Zarketh technology, secretly reverse engineering it in their underground labs, learning how to shield themselves from psionic attack. Earth's scientists, engineers, and rogue military factions collaborated in ways never before seen. They built devices that interfered with psionic fields, weapons that could counteract Zarketh telepathy. As the human government prepared for what they knew would come next, a full-scale assault, an emergency summit was called. The world's leaders united for the first time, not under the banner of fear, but under the banner of defiance. Earth would not surrender. They would fight, not with overwhelming force, but with ingenuity, resilience, and the thing the Zarketh could never comprehend, the unpredictability of the human mind. Captain Mara Voss, a battle-hardened Special Forces commander, emerged as Earth's tactical leader. She was known for her unorthodox strategies and her ability to turn the tide in impossible situations. She understood the Zarketh, but she also understood something more important. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, nor its armies. It was their willpower. The Zarketh had underestimated humanity. And now Earth had sent a message the Dominion would never forget. We are coming for you. The Zarketh Dominion, shaken by humanity's audacity, had underestimated the humans in a way they could never have anticipated. The initial arrogance, the certainty that no species could challenge their psionic might, had begun to unravel. Earth had shown its resilience not through brute force but through cunning and resolve. The Zarketh were no longer dealing with a backward species, but one that was adapting at a pace they could not match. Realizing the threat was real, the Zarketh Emperor, Valterix the Infinite Mind, ordered the immediate deployment of a full-scale assault fleet. His strategy was simple: eliminate humanity before it could grow too powerful. The fleet, consisting of hundreds of psionically enhanced warships, each capable of manipulating matter with a single thought, entered Earth's solar system, their arrival a spectacle of destructive potential. They would obliterate Earth and wipe out the humans' growing resistance. But humanity's response was not what the Zarketh expected. The humans did not try to engage in a traditional space battle. They had no hope of matching the firepower or psionic abilities of the Zarketh in open combat. Instead, they had prepared a strategy that was far more dangerous: guerrilla warfare in the void. Using stealth technology, scavenged from Zarketh ships, and reverse-engineered alien tech, human forces hid within asteroid fields, planetary moons, and debris fields. Earth's engineers had built ships specifically designed to remain undetected. They did not rely on shields but on sophisticated cloaking devices and sensor jammers. Humanity's fleet was small compared to the Zarketh's, but it was swift, elusive, and unpredictable. One by one, Zarketh warships began to disappear. The first attack was a cybernetic strike. A group of human hackers infiltrated the Zarketh's neural networks and uploaded a virus that disrupted their telepathic communication. The virus spread like wildfire, corrupting Zarketh databanks and causing confusion throughout the fleet. Zarketh commanders found themselves cut off from their soldiers, unable to issue coordinated orders. Then came the mind games. Humans, having studied Zarketh behavior, understood one critical weakness. Their reliance on telepathic communication made them predictable. By manipulating Zarketh neural nodes, the humans turned the Zarketh's greatest strength into a weapon against them. The human mind, chaotic and erratic, was an anomaly, and it proved to be the perfect countermeasure. The humans began broadcasting false signals, planting disinformation deep within the Zarketh's neural networks. They fed the Zarketh false battlefield data, creating a simulacrum of fake fleets and non-existent attacks. Zarketh officers, disoriented and unable to trust their own senses, hesitated. They questioned their next move. And when the moment came, a single human strike force would strike with surgical precision, disabling Zarketh ships and erasing key psionic nodes that powered their fleets. Captain Mara Voss, coordinating these missions from Earth's underground command center, proved herself to be a brilliant strategist. Her plan wasn't just to defend Earth. It was to bleed the Zarketh dry, to wear them down with psychological warfare and unpredictability. The Zarketh, masters of psychic domination, could not foresee a species that would weaponize disorder, confusion, and randomness. The human strategy was an alien concept to them, and it was proving devastating. As the months passed, Earth's resistance began to swell. Rogue species who had once bowed to the Zarketh, seeing humanity's tenacity, began to aid in the fight. Ships from the Gorvath, Trellex, and other once subjugated races started to rally around the human cause, contributing resources, technology, and personnel. The Zarketh, once supreme, found themselves on the defensive. Their psychic supremacy was slipping, and the belief that the galaxy was theirs began to fray at the edges. Humanity was no longer an insignificant nuisance. The Dominion's finest generals began to question whether they had miscalculated. Theory. Galaxy watched, holding its breath. Earth had sent a message. They would not be cowed. And though the Dominion's fleet remained a terrifying force, its invincibility was no longer assured. The tide was turning, but the Zarketh would not surrender easily, and the next phase of the war would be even more perilous. The war between humanity and the Zarketh Dominion had reached its breaking point. For the first time in over a century, the once unstoppable Zarketh were facing the reality of defeat. Their vast fleets had been worn down by human ingenuity, their psionic forces destabilized by the chaotic unpredictability of human strategy. The Zarketh, led by their emperor Valterix, the Infinite Mind, had come to one inevitable conclusion. The only way to truly break humanity was to target their leader, Captain Mara Voss. Valterix, whose psionic abilities were legendary, believed that by confronting Mara directly, he could shatter her will and destroy the human resistance once and for all. The Emperor was no stranger to mental combat. His abilities could crush minds, obliterate entire cities with a single thought. But humans had always been an enigma to him. They were resistant to psionic influence, their minds chaotic and unpredictable, refusing to bend to his will. Now he would take on humanity's greatest symbol of defiance in a duel of the mind. He initiated Protocol Eclipse, a direct mental confrontation designed to isolate Mara's consciousness from her body and bring her into a battle of wills. Using an advanced psionic device, he created a mindscape, a virtual reality where he could manipulate Mara's perception and emotions at will. The battlefield was not a physical one, but a distorted representation of Mara's memories, her fears, and her deepest thoughts. In this mental plane, Valterix appeared as a towering, omnipotent presence, an almost godlike figure whose power could warp the very fabric of reality. He was certain that he could unravel her mind, break her will, and make her beg for mercy. With each thought, he sent waves of overwhelming despair, sorrow and regret crashing into her consciousness. But what Valterix failed to anticipate was humanity's true strength. Mara Voss was no ordinary soldier. She had survived unimaginable odds and led her people through one of the most brutal wars in galactic history. She was not afraid. She had been through hell, and nothing the Zarketh could throw at her would break her resolve. As the Zarketh Emperor assaulted her mind with his psionic powers, Mara dug into the depths of her own consciousness. She did not resist with force, but with the core of human resilience, memory, emotion, and sheer will. Unlike the Zarketh, who were bound by the rigid logic of their telepathic collective, Mara's mind was untamed. She could revisit moments of personal strength, her memories of the people she had fought for and the love she held for her world. Each memory she embraced became a barrier against Valterix's onslaught. She began to turn the tide. The more Valterix attacked, the stronger she became. Mara's chaotic thoughts, fueled by emotion and unpredictability, became the very thing that disrupted Valterix's control. The Zarketh Emperor, used to controlling the flow of thoughts and energy, found himself drowning in the sheer dissonance of human thought. He couldn't predict her actions. He couldn't control her emotions. She was like a storm, a chaotic force that he could not dominate. In the final moments of their battle, Mara's memories, her unbreakable will, surged forward, overwhelming the Zarketh Emperor's psyche. Valterix, the mighty ruler of the Dominion, began to falter. His perfect mind cracked under the pressure. He realized, too late, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their military strength. It was their minds, their ability to survive, adapt, and resist. With a final, overwhelming surge of will, Mara tore through the mental construct. Valterix fell, not from physical injury, but from the complete unraveling of his own mind. The Emperor, who had believed himself infallible, was broken. The Zarketh's psionic network collapsed, and their once unshakable collective mind shattered. Without their Emperor to guide them, the Dominion fell into chaos. The minds of the remaining Zarketh, disoriented and confused, began to lose their cohesion. Mara Voss emerged from the mental battlefield, physically exhausted but victorious. The tide of war had turned, and humanity had won a decisive victory. The Zarketh Dominion, the empire that had crushed countless civilizations, had finally met its match in the human mind, a mind that could not be controlled, a will that could not be broken. And with the Zarketh's fall, the galaxy had learned the most valuable lesson of all: never underestimate humanity.